Before we come to today's business, I wanted to note that on Sunday, the 27th of October, we marked the 75th anniversary of the rebuilding of this chamber after it was bombed during the Second World War and left destroyed. The chamber we sit in today remains a continuing symbol of resilience and renewal. On rebuilding the chamber, Prime Minister Winston Churchill described the House of Commons as a citadel of British liberty. This House and this chamber continue to play a vital role at the heart of our democracy today. I am sure the whole House will want to join me in marking this important anniversary. I invite members of the chamber at 11 a.m. tomorrow to attend for a commemorative photo to mark the occasion. 11 a.m. tomorrow. Right, order. We come to questions, Secretary of State for Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Affairs. Charlie Maynard.
Question number 1, please, Mr. Speaker.
For a second.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I join you in the tribute and marking the 75th anniversary of the rebuilding of this chamber and the tribute to democracy? Let me also say that I know many people will have concerns for family and friends in Jamaica in the face of Hurricane Melissa, and I will make a further statement on the UK's response at topical questions. On Sudan, I strongly condemn the escalating violence in El Fasher and the very grave reports of civilian casualties and sufferings. And it is estimated that between 200 and 300 civilians are in the city at grave risk of atrocities following the RSF advances. I've held meetings and discussions, including at the General Assembly, the UN General Assembly, and since with a series of countries, including the UAE and members of the Quad, as we call for a desperately needed ceasefire.
Charlie Maynard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's been widely reported in the press that the United Arab Emirates is arming the RSF in Sudan. The RSF is one of the 2 warring factions in Sudan and was found by the UN to be responsible for crimes against humanity, including murder, torture, enslavement, rape and sexual violence. As per UK government export data, the UK exported nearly £750 million worth of arms to the UAE via single individual export licenses between 2019 and 2023. If the UAE is indeed arming the RSF, the UK is breaching its arms export licensing criteria, specifically criteria 1F, 2, 4, 6 and 7. Importantly, these criteria look beyond considering whether the UK exported weapons ultimately reach Sudan. They instead consider the UK's international obligations. Given this, what steps is the UK government taking to verify whether the UAE is indeed arming the RSF?
Order. Please, it's a very important subject. There's other members need to come in as well. They're meant to be questions rather than statements. I recognise the importance. I'm sure you're going to come to the end of the question now, please.
I apologise, Mr. Speaker. Whether the UAE is indeed arming the RSF, and will the UK cease all arms shipments to the UAE until it is proven that the UAE is not arming the RSF?
Foreign Secretary.
Well, let me make 2 points in response to his question. First of all, as he will know, the UK has extremely strong controls on arms exports, including to prevent any diversion, and that remains important. We will continue to take that immensely seriously. Secondly, we need all countries with influence in the region to push the RSF and also the SAF to ensure the protection of civilians. There are real deep concerns about atrocities in Sudan, including sexual violence and the use of rape as a weapon of war. He will be aware of the new work being done through the Quad of countries, the US, Saudi Arabia, the UAE and Egypt, who've condemned the violence and called for an end to external support for the warring parties. We are pressing for the urgent implementation of this.
And Lisa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As penholder at the UN Security Council for both Sudan and the protection of civilians, the UK has a special responsibility following the fall of Al Fasher and the appalling reports that she referred to. First, will she call an emergency session of the Security Council focused on the protection of civilians, terrified civilians in Darfur given recent events? And she talks about the Quad. That statement was before recent events over the last 3 days, appalling events. Will she push every country in the Quad, US, Saudi Arabia, Egypt and the UAE, to act now to prevent further massacres?
Secretary.
Well, I agree with my right honourable friend that Sudan and the escalating violence, the humanitarian crisis must be on the agenda for the Security Council. We are pressing for that meeting to take place as soon as possible and also to ensure that at its heart is also the issues around the protection of civilians. There was already a humanitarian crisis in Sudan with huge numbers of people at risk of famine even before this escalating violence, and I also agree with her on the urgent need to press all parties to cease the violence and to ensure that humanitarian aid can get through.
Sir Andrew Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The news from Al Fasher in Darfur overnight is truly dreadful, with evidence of summary executions and undoubted ethnic cleansing. Given the pivotal role that Britain plays, as set out by the Right Honourable Lady, the former Development Minister just now, will she urgently review everything that we are doing to prevent Al Fasher becoming another Srebrenica?
Foreign Secretary.
Well, the honourable member is right to raise the grave nature of this crisis and the seriousness of the violence that is taking place in El Fasher. So I do agree with him that we need to put every possible pressure on through the UN, but also directly through the Quad. We need the urgent action in place to get a ceasefire, the humanitarian truce that the Quad has called for, but also the humanitarian aid and the crucial protection of civilians in place. He will know that the UK did double aid for Sudan and has continued to protect that, but the aid is not able to get through as long as there's this terrible fighting taking place.
David Smith.
Mr. Speaker, as we've heard, there's about 250,000 civilians, including 130,000 children, trapped in the city of El Fasher, following a brutal siege that's lasted 18 months. So this is a critical moment amidst the world's greatest humanitarian catastrophe in Sudan. So can I ask the Foreign Secretary, what can the UK government do with allies to ensure that we get humanitarian exit routes for those civilians out of El Fasher?
Foreign Secretary.
Well, I agree with my honourable friend that this is one of the most urgent things, is the humanitarian, the civilian pathways out of the city to safety. We are urgently urging a ceasefire to take place. We need all sides to pull back from this escalating violence. It is incredibly dangerous where we are seeing the scale of the atrocities that are now at risk of taking place. But the most immediate urgent thing is to get a safe way out of the city for civilians.
Jacob Collier.
Two, Mr. Speaker.
Foreign Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, the ceasefire agreement in Gaza as a result of President Trump's peace initiative is a profound moment of peace and hope, but it needs to hold and it needs to become a lasting peace after 2 years of the most horrendous suffering. Our immediate priority is ensuring unconditional humanitarian aid is flooded into Gaza where more action is needed, but we are also working with partners to support the implementation of Phase 2 of the peace plan, including the disarming of Hamas and the establishment of a Palestinian committee as transitional government and a pathway to 2 states living side by side.
I think it's a group question, Foreign Secretary.
Oh, yes, sorry. Yes, and let me group these questions with questions. I'm hoping you're going to steer me while I turn to the right page with the numbers 2, 7 and 15. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Jacob Collier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're grateful for the United States in its coordination, and this must not be a temporary peace that fades away. The ceasefire, as she says, remains fragile, with both sides accused of violations, and fighting on the occupied West Bank continues. So can my right honourable friend assure the House that the UK will continue to play an active role in supporting the peace plan and holding all parties to its commitments?
Secretary.
My honourable friend is right. Given the horrendous suffering that we've seen over the last 2 years, we need to ensure that the ceasefire holds. Part of that involves getting the humanitarian aid into Gaza. We are urging more crossings to be opened, and we are urging restrictions on humanitarian aid to be lifted. And we are also working on some of the crucial next steps in conjunction with the US, with Arab states, with many other states who have been involved in supporting this ceasefire, increment of Hamas, and including the development of new governance arrangements.
Rinda Chess.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Despite the much welcomed peace plan, we have already seen breaches in the form of Israeli airstrikes, with life-saving supplies being restricted from entering Gaza. So what are we doing to ensure that sufficient humanitarian aid can go through to end the famine swiftly, and that the Israeli leadership is held accountable for violations of international law, so that we can finally see an end to this conflict with no more innocent Palestinian or Israeli lives being lost?
Foreign Secretary.
Well, it is important that all sides hold to the ceasefire and implement all of the steps that have been committed to as part of President Trump's 20-point peace plan. That does involve getting the humanitarian aid in place, and it also involves maintaining the ceasefire. We are working with the US and with other countries to seek to support an effective monitoring arrangement so that there can be a proper process involved to ensure that all sides hold to the ceasefire and that there is a proper process in place to keep moving forward.
Nadia Whitton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Over 2 weeks into the ceasefire in Gaza, Israeli forces are still killing Palestinians. Many are being shot at as they attempt to return to their homes near a yellow line marked by Israel, a line that Israeli media is increasingly calling a new border. What will the government do to ensure that this supposedly temporary yellow line does not become a permanent border and effectively cut Gaza in half?
Foreign Secretary.
Well, we have been clear that not only can we not divide Gaza, but this has to be part of the journey to a two-state solution, which includes Gaza and East Jerusalem and the West Bank, because that is the only way that we will get a just and lasting peace. Of course, there are transition arrangements set out as part of the 20-point plan, but it's really crucial that not only do we maintain this ceasefire agreement, the first phase, but that we keep making progress on the rest of the points in the 20-point plan and the second phase as well.
Bob Blatton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thankfully, the living hostages have been returned to receive medical attention and back to their families. But very sadly, the bodies of the deceased hostages have not all been returned. And that is a key element in this ceasefire treaty. So what action is the Foreign Secretary taking to make sure that Israel is supported, and if necessary, that the Palestinians are supported, to identify the bodies of the deceased hostages and returned so that closure can happen for those families?
Foreign Secretary.
The Honourable Member makes an immensely important point, and all of us will have seen the incredibly moving scenes of hostages returning after the most horrendous captivity and being returned to their families. But those who have lost loved ones, whose loved ones were taken in that barbaric terrorist attack on October the 7th, and are still waiting to have their remains returned. I have spoken to families whose loved ones were lost and who have had their remains returned, but I know still how difficult this is and how people need to be able to grieve and to be able to pay tribute to their loved ones. We are continuing to press for all of the hostage remains to be released, and also we have offered support, for example, demining capabilities, where, for example, there are concerns about ordinances that might prevent the recovery of remains.
Foreign.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. How will the United Kingdom help to ensure that the Gaza peace plan includes measures to restore access to clean and plentiful water? The main source of fresh water in Gaza is the coastal aquifer, which is contaminated by seawater, sewage and chemicals. Up to 97% of Gaza's tap water is unfit for human consumption. Surely she will agree there can be no just peace amidst thirst and squalor.
Foreign Secretary.
The Honourable Member is right to highlight water as a crucial humanitarian aid and support, and I have spoken to Tom Fletcher, who is coordinating much of the UN support, and also to the Egyptian and Israeli foreign ministers about the importance of ensuring that the crossings are open, but also that to be able to provide water, but also to be able to rebuild critical infrastructure as well. That will also require financing, and my honourable friend, the Middle East Minister, has already been involved in looking at ways in which we can finance reconstruction for the long term.
Jim Shannon.
Speaker, can I thank the Minister very much for her response, Minister. The peace plan can only succeed if Hamas are not part of that. Hamas need to return the dead hostages to their families. They need to ensure they're disarmed, and they need to make sure that they're not carrying out summary executions of fellow Gazians as they are doing. Can I ask the Minister this question? If it's going to have a peace plan that lasts, then take Hamas out, remove them from the situation, and we can have peace.
Well, the honourable member will know that I have always described Hamas as a barbaric terrorist organisation. That remains the case, and it's why it's been so crucial that we've seen the Arab League also condemn and reject Hamas, and to join us and other countries from across the world in being clear that Hamas can play no role in the future governance of Gaza or the future governance of Palestine. It's why the UK has particularly been offering support on the decommissioning of weapons and the disarming of Hamas. That is a crucial part of the peace process so that Palestinians and Israelis can live in peace and security.
Shadow Foreign Secretary David Patel.
The Foreign Secretary will know that we continue to see Hamas terrorise the people of Gaza, carrying out summary executions and depriving people of aid. Terrorist tunnels and their infrastructure still remains in place. So what role is she playing in terms of negotiations and dialogue around the elimination of Hamas? What is the government's view on how the International Stabilisation Force will operate? And will the UK be playing a role in the Board of Peace alongside her former leader and friend, Tony Blair?
So the Shadow Foreign Secretary is right to highlight the importance of the disarmament, the decommissioning of Hamas, needing to involve tunnels as well as weapons and the entire infrastructure of terror that was built up over many years. That is why the UK has been proposing different ways in which we can help in the process of decommissioning and disarming Hamas, using expertise that the UK has built up over very many years. That will be a central part of maintaining this peace process for a just and lasting peace. She will know too that there are further discussions underway about what the governance processes need to be for the Palestinian Committee and also for the Board of Peace that were identified as part of President Trump's 20-point plan. Those further details are still being negotiated, but we are clear, whatever the arrangements, we will continue to play a crucial role in supporting this peace process.
Helen Miller, Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And may I echo the Foreign Secretary's words about Hurricane Melissa and our shared concern for the people of that island and British citizens on it. At this hopeful but fragile moment for Gaza, all sides must fulfil their ceasefire obligations, including Hamas returning the remaining hostages' bodies and Israel reopening all aid routes into the Strip. We must also preserve the conditions for a two-state solution, and this Gaza peace plan is not sufficient to deliver a lasting peace between two viable and secure states. Last week, the Knesset voted in favour of annexing the West Bank, a move which would undermine Palestinians' right to self-determination. The strong criticism from US Secretary of State Rubio was notable and welcome. So will the Foreign Secretary work with the American administration to bring forward a UN Security Council resolution which unreservedly condemns that vote and reaffirms the illegality of seizing territory by force?
Foreign Secretary.
Well, as I have been clear, that the future of Palestine needs to include the West Bank, East Jerusalem and Gaza. We have always strongly condemned any proposals around the annexation of the West Bank, but also illegal settlements in the West Bank. And it is significant that not only Secretary of State Rubio, but also President Trump and Vice President Vance have all made clear their condemnation of the proposals for the annexation of the West Bank. In order to have security and peace for Israelis alongside security of peace for Palestinians, we need ultimately to work towards that two-state solution, two states living side by side.
Patrick Hurley.
Question 3, Mr. Speaker.
Foreign Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On Friday, I welcomed President Zelensky and the coalition of the willing to the Foreign Office to a meeting chaired by the Prime Minister to demonstrate our continued support for Ukraine in the face of Russian aggression. Since I set out in this House new stronger sanctions against the two largest oil producers, Rosneft and Lukoil, I'm pleased to say the US has followed suit. The EU has also introduced further sanctions. We need to tighten the economic vice on Russia to bring Putin to the table and get a pathway to peace.
Early.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The UK's leadership on the issue of Russian sovereign assets. What further conversations is the Foreign Secretary having with her counterparts internationally to accelerate this work and to ensure that Russia pays for its illegal war?
Foreign Secretary.
The issue of Russian sovereign assets is an extremely important one. Both I and the Chancellor have had many discussions with our counterparts, particularly in Europe, but also through the G7 as well. We want to be able to mobilise those sovereign assets in order to be able to support Ukraine. The EU has set out proposals for reparation loans, which we think are the sensible way forward, because fundamentally Russia needs to pay for the damage it is doing to Ukraine.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I welcome the Foreign Secretary's comments about Russian frozen assets? Now, she'll possibly agree with me that the US is an increasingly unreliable partner for Ukraine. Can she tell me what discussions she's had with European counterparts about securing Ukrainians' long-range missiles with European partners so they can better defend themselves?
Foreign Secretary.
Well, this was an issue that was discussed as part of the coalition of the willing, and where NATO was present, as well as many countries, both from Europe and across the world, as part of those discussions, which was about the continued military support for Ukraine, but also about this crucial economic pressure as well. And I would say to him that I think the US package of sanctions that has now been announced, that very much is very similar to the package that we announced on Rosneft and Lukoil, is an extremely important one, because we need to choke off Russian oil and gas's access to the market.
Select Committee, Dame Emily Thornbury.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm really pleased to see the Foreign Secretary writing in the Times yesterday about now is the time for international action to use Russian frozen assets to support Ukraine. The trouble is that over the last 3 years, 8 months, 4 days, there has been a lot of talk about using these assets, and nothing has happened. I know that the Foreign Secretary knows the last thing that Ukraine needs is warm words. We need to have action, particularly against a background of the Russians renewing their bombing campaign against civilians in the cities. So the question is, if there is going to be a plan, when is it going to happen? When will this considerable sum of money be able to be used to rearm and rebuild Ukraine?
Secretary.
Well, can I also echo my right honourable friend's comments about the civilian attacks that we have seen, including the most horrendous attack on a kindergarten in Ukraine as well. But she is right that we need to ensure that these assets are mobilised. Obviously, a lot of this needs to be done in conjunction with the EU, where many of the assets are currently held. The EU has had a series of discussions and has made significant progress with the work done by the EU Commission, but also many of the other individual nations that are pressing now to go further. We are working closely with them to do so. We need to get this investment mobilised to support Ukraine.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The US President was willing to meet with the Russian President in Budapest, in spite of the fact that we gave assurances in Budapest in that 1994 memorandum, and they have since been ignored. While that meeting won't now go ahead, could the Foreign Secretary share the latest thinking in government about future security guarantees for Ukraine?
Foreign Secretary.
Well, the security guarantees remains an important part of our support for Ukraine. It's one of the reasons that the coalition of the willing was brought together in order to set out what those security guarantees would be, and of course that will continue to be working with the US in order to do so. But the most immediate issue is to ensure that there is sufficient economic pressure, particularly on oil and gas, to bring Putin back to the table, because whilst President Zelensky has said he is willing to negotiate and willing to support an immediate ceasefire, President Putin is simply escalating the war.
Mr. Wenham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Russia's war in Ukraine is fuelled by oil export revenues sustained by third country refineries in India, Turkey and China that process and re-export Russian crude as refined products, often to sanctioned states. These countries are fuelling Putin's war chest. Last month, President Trump called on Turkey to halt Russian oil imports. Did the Prime Minister follow President Trump's approach and demand that his Turkish counterpart stops the Star refinery and Tupras from buying Russian oil?
Foreign Secretary.
Well, I can say to her that we have these discussions with countries right across the world, urging them to support either sanctions or to reduce their dependence on Russian oil and gas, to reduce those imports and to help us in choking the supply of oil and gas from Russia off the market. And that is why we have also begun now to sanction refineries, designated refineries, not just in Russia itself, but across the world.
Number 4, sir. Front bench. Or Foreign Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, the former Foreign Secretary set out to Parliament earlier this year the full spectrum of threats posed by China, including espionage, cyber attacks, transnational repression and support for Russia. We challenged China robustly in relation to all of those threats. China is also our third largest trading partner and a country we need to work intensely with on international issues like climate change. That is why we need to challenge China on security and to compete and cooperate on economic and global affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Foreign Secretary, in her former role, wrote to the Planning Inspectorate raising no objections about the Chinese super embassy application. She didn't mention any concerns about the secret basements, or some people describe them as dungeons, on the application, and she raised no objection about the proximity of the application to key data cables in the City of London. In her new role, does the Foreign Secretary now regret her previous lack of action?
Well, the honourable member will know that the government takes action to ensure that security measures are in place, and we do so through a series of different routes, and he will also know that the planning process is independent and will follow its course.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When it comes to the UK's relations with China, it is not a simple binary choice between national security and growth. National security must always be our non-negotiable red line, but subject to that, does the Foreign Secretary agree that where there are specific sectors where economic engagement with China promotes growth, that we should be open to it?
Foreign Secretary.
My honourable friend is right that we already have substantial trade with China and also investment both from the UK and from China, and we have always been a trading nation that works and trades with countries right across the globe. But he is also right that national security must always be the first priority, and that is why wherever there are national security threats, we take them immensely seriously and will always challenge China on those.
Deputy Patel, Foreign Secretary.
Speaking of challenging China, will the Foreign Secretary comment on the recent threats made by the Chinese government towards Britain over the embassy application, the spy case and Taiwan? And can she tell the House whether any meetings with the Chinese government, British ministers, Jonathan Powell or other officials have discussed the now collapsed spy case? Has China at any point requested this case to be dropped? And will she now apologise for backing the embassy application?
Foreign Secretary.
For the Shadow Foreign Secretary has perhaps forgotten the position that her government has previously taken on a range of issues towards China. But let's be clear, we have made clear that the planning process in the UK is independent. It has to go through the normal planning processes as is appropriate. We also ensure that security measures are always taken immensely seriously, and we have a range of different ways to do so. In terms of the China case that she has referred to, I remain extremely frustrated about the collapse of this case, and my view remains that this kind of activity that was alleged in this case should face the full force of the law. That's why I supported the strengthening and updating of the law in this area to make prosecutions easier. It is a shame that her party took so long to do it.
Dr. Al Pinkerton.
Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And it was fantastic to visit Gibraltar recently for National Day, and also to have met recently with the EU and Spanish counterparts. The agreement reached between the UK and the EU in June was very welcome. It's very significant, and it will mean jobs, investment, stability, not just for Gibraltar, but indeed across the whole region. And all parties have agreed to work together to finalise the treaty text and ratify the agreement as quickly as possible. And I'll update the House in due course.
Dr. Al Pinkerton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Like the Minister, I had the pleasure of being in Gibraltar earlier this summer at the invitation of the Government, and I draw the House to my register of interest. And I saw for myself the vital necessity
in this deal to secure the economy and the social fabric of Gibraltar, and in particular the movement of 15,000 people across the Spain-Gibraltar frontier every day. Can the Minister commit to bring this treaty to the House at the first possible House can have the fullest possible scrutiny of the details?
Well, absolutely can do so, and he mentions the challenges that have existed at the border. I've been stuck in those queues as well, Mr. Speaker. You may have been as well, and this deal is going to mean an end to that and a new positive relationship, and very much is going to be positive for the economy and all the people of Gibraltar. We will bring the treaty as soon as possible, as soon as it's finalised. It will go through its normal processes, and Parliament, of course, be able to debate the terms of the treaty if it wishes.
Amanda Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I draw the House's attention to my register of interest. Mr. Speaker, it was an honour to welcome Gibraltar's First Minister to last week's Gibraltar All-Party Parliamentary Group AGM, and as a cross-party we wholeheartedly welcome the treaty. But can the Minister assure me that the treaty will ensure economic benefits for Gibraltarians and an increase in the prospect for tourism?
Well, I indeed absolutely can assure her, and I want to thank her for her work and indeed the work of the whole APPG and indeed the cross-party work that goes on in support of Gibraltar. And I know, of course, this is a deal that is firmly backed by the Chief Minister of Gibraltar and his government, and is going to bring important benefits for the economy, for jobs, for the people of Gibraltar, and as she mentions, in tourism. We might be able to see now more flights coming into the Gibraltar airport from elsewhere in Europe. That's going to be very positive, I think, for Gibraltar and for the region.
Andrew George.
Mr. Speaker. The UK's commitment to a two-state solution remains steadfast. The UK has provided £116 million of aid to the Palestinian people this year. I was proud that on the 21st of September, the Prime Minister announced the UK recognition of the State of Palestine. That was to protect the viability of the two-state solution and support a path towards lasting peace. Meanwhile, the UK government is continuing to provide technical and financial support to the Palestinian Authority as it builds a viable and effective state of Palestine. In July, we announced £7 million in technical support to strengthen governance, accountability and civic space in Palestine, and both I and the Foreign Secretary remain in touch with our Palestinian counterparts.
Andrew George.
Slow as it was, it's very welcome indeed. I'm grateful to the Minister for his response. But will the government go beyond suspending new trade deals and actively review existing trade deals with Israel, including both goods and services originating from the illegal settlements, to ensure that UK trade policy does not undermine the prospect of Palestinian statehood?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Foreign Secretary has already been clear about the importance of a single effective Palestinian state, which of course includes the West Bank, and the Honourable Member has heard from me on a number of occasions about the different trading standards that exist both for Israel itself and for the occupied territories. Of course we keep these questions under close review, but I think the whole House will appreciate that our focus for now needs to be very much on making sure that the ceasefire holds, we move into the 20-point plan and to the two-state solution that we all want to see.
We'll come around.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We all welcome a ceasefire and we welcome the recognition of a Palestinian state, but we must now support the Palestinian people. The head of the United Nations Humanitarian Affairs team has said that driving through Gaza City is like going through the ruins of Hiroshima. Mr. Speaker, for the people of Gaza who've endured this hellish war and survived, they now face a humanitarian disaster. They urgently need aid, and the UK, along with many other countries, stands ready to provide it. The block to this aid, as so frequently has been the case, is the Israeli authorities. What steps is the government taking to ensure that Israel stops blocking this urgently needed aid and humanitarian supplies, and to get to people that are desperately in need?
Mr. Speaker, I want to update the House on this very, very important question. We are seeing a greater flow of aid into Gaza. That is, of course, supremely welcome and something that we have long awaited. But it is not yet at the level we would wish to see. There are still restrictions on that aid going in, and vital crossings, as the Foreign Secretary has been clear, remain unopened. We continue to engage with all of our partners on this, and both I and the Foreign Secretary will be travelling to the region this weekend to pursue that work.
Alison Bennett.
Question 8, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, the continued erosion of democratic rights and freedoms in Hong Kong is deeply concerning. Last week, the Foreign Secretary submitted to this House the government's latest 6-monthly report on Hong Kong, which details how national security legislation is diminishing Hong Kong's political autonomy. The government will continue to champion the rights and freedoms of the people of Hong Kong.
Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A constituent of mine who now lives in Haywards Heath came to the UK from Hong Kong under the British National Overseas Visa route after the deterioration of human rights there left her and her daughter with no choice but to seek safety. She is now deeply anxious about reports that the qualifying period for settlement and citizenship may be extended. I think the whole House can agree that the human rights violations in Hong Kong are abhorrent. So what representations has the Minister made to her Chinese counterparts, and can she explain how she will protect BNO visa holders who have made their home in the UK?
Minister.
I thank the Honourable Lady for her question, and indeed we will also agree that any attempts by foreign governments to coerce, intimidate, harass or harm their critics or others abroad, especially in the UK, we will not tolerate them. And the government is also strengthening efforts to tackle transnational repression, including the introduction of dedicated police training and online guidance to support victims. And indeed, we are committed to the people of Hong Kong as exemplified by the BNO visa route. It is our historic and moral commitment, and she will be aware in relation to the Immigration White Paper and those changes that the government will bring forth more details about the consultation and work in due course.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 2 pro-democracy parties in Hong Kong have disbanded recently. Activist Joshua Wong was rearrested and faces further charges under the national security law, and Jimmy Lai remains in prison. Does the Minister agree with me that the national security law continues to be used to erode the rights and freedoms of Hong Kongers, and can she confirm that the UK continues to strongly oppose it?
Minister.
I thank my honourable friend for his comments. I can confirm absolutely that we continue to oppose the national security law, and as was outlined in the report that the Foreign Secretary presented to Parliament last week, the Hong Kong authorities continue to apply national security legislation to diminish the city's political autonomy and political pluralism, including freedom of association, freedom of assembly, freedom of information, and indeed Hong Kong now ranks 140th out of 180 in the 2025 World Press Freedom Index, entering the red zone for the first time. This is indeed a very serious situation.
Daniel Francis.
Hi, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And we know that, of course, people smuggling gangs work across borders to operate their vile trade, so we must work across borders to disrupt their supply chains, dismantle their networks and undermine their business model. And that's why we're strengthening cooperation with other countries, including through our illegal migration sanctions regime, the first of its kind in the world, and we're targeting the leaders of people smuggling gangs wherever they are based.
Daniel Francis.
Can I thank the Minister for his answer, which I know is an issue of great concern to my constituents across Bexhill and Crayford. And could he provide an update following last week's West Balkans summit on measures that are being taken to reduce the number of illegal migrants being brought to the UK via the Western Balkans?
Minister.
Well, thank him for his very important question, and he's absolutely right that tackling illegal migration is vital in our strategic relationship with the Western Balkans. And last week we announced new sanctions against gang leaders, passport forgers and illicit financiers, many with ties to that region. And we're enhancing collaboration between our countries, for example, through the Border Police Chiefs Forum, the expansion of the Joint Migration Task Force and the deployment of UK border security officers to the Western Balkans.
A lock-up.
Mr. Speaker, does the Minister agree that foreign nationals convicted of serious drug offences in Northern Ireland should be deported without delay? And will he ensure that his department work with international partners, prioritise swift removal agreements to stop those involved in organised immigration and drug crime from reoffending on our streets?
Mr. Speaker, I absolutely agree with the sentiment with her question, and she will know that in our first year in government we deported over 5,000 foreign national offenders, a 14% increase on the previous 12 months, and we are speeding up the early removal scheme so that most foreign prisoners can be deported after serving 30% of their custodial sentence rather than the previous 50%.
Julian Smith.
Question number 10, Mr Speaker.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The BBC World Service remains the world's most trusted international news source and supports our national security, growth and development objectives. That is why we provided a 31% funding for the World Service this year, and funding allocations for the next 3 years will be announced in due course.
There's been an excellent report by the Institute for Global Prosperity and Creative Power about the sheer impact of the World Service, reaching 320 million people globally, trusted by 75%, and in a key market for the government, India, 75 million people listening or watching the BBC. Could he confirm the structures within government to how it's going to maximise the opportunity of the World Service, one of our best soft power assets, and the best way we can have conversations with the rest of the world?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the right honourable gentleman for his question. The Government agree with him wholeheartedly that the BBC World Service is one of our strongest areas of soft power. He will be aware that the Charter Review starts next year, and we think that's one of the best ways in which we can work towards the funding streams. We are now working with the BBC World Service on ways in which they can innovate to ensure that they are reaching even further into being the most trusted news network around the globe.
David Hamilton.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I recently met with senior journalists who are exiled from Russia following Putin's clampdown on any form of free, trustworthy media. Despite these huge challenges, they're still providing vital and accurate reporting for all those in the region who need it most. Will the Minister commit to sustainable funding guarantees for our soft power and continue to support these courageous journalists who are forced to move countries and are often threatened by rogue states?
Minister.
I agree with my honourable friend in terms of the work of the BBC World Service, and we are actually working with the BBC. I'm due to visit shortly Broadcasting House to see the work they're doing firsthand, particularly on the innovative work they're doing to deliver and develop on their funding programmes, and that will form part of the Charter Review, in particular in response to Russian interference around the world's media. And I echo his support for the journalists who work in the World Service, who do so much to expose what is happening globally, particularly around conflict.
All Levis.
Question number 11, Mr Speaker.
Minister.
With permission, Mr Speaker, I'll answer questions 11 and 16 together. Alongside our international partners, the UK is working to get aid into Gaza at the scale that is needed to ease the desperate humanitarian crisis that is taking place. In recent days, the Foreign Secretary has spoken with Tom Fletcher of the United Nations, Egyptian Foreign Minister Abdelati, and Israeli Foreign Minister Saar about the importance of opening more crossings and removing all restrictions on aid. We are ready to play our full part in providing that aid. We've announced £74 million of humanitarian funding already this year, including £20 million announced at the Peace Summit in Egypt.
Levis.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I fully support the Minister in welcoming the US brokered ceasefire, which has enabled the delivery of much-needed humanitarian aid into Gaza. As the Minister is aware, the UN and its partners have significantly scaled up their operations, providing essential supplies such as food, water, medical aid and fuel. However, given the border closures and ongoing political tensions continue to obstruct the flow of assistance, may I ask the Minister what steps is the government taking to ensure unimpeded humanitarian access and to prevent aid from being used as a tool of political leverage?
Mr Speaker, my honourable friend is absolutely right. Following the US-led ceasefire agreement and the UN's work, more troops are starting to cross the border, but it needs to be much more rapidly scaled up, and indeed we need to see the Rafah crossing in particular fully opened. Alongside other aid routes, we need international NGOs in and able to operate in Gaza unimpeded. Civilians in Gaza can't wait.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The Norwegian Refugee Council says that between the 10th and 21st of October, 99 requests by international NGOs to deliver aid into Gaza were rejected by Israel on the grounds that these organisations are not authorised to deliver humanitarian aid into Gaza. Yet these are trusted agencies which have operated there for decades. So can the Minister tell the people of Gaza, who are living in makeshift shelters, hungry and thirsty, what the UK government is actually doing to compel the Israeli authorities to immediately allow aid deliveries into Gaza?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we need to see the agreement implemented in full. The Foreign Secretary has raised this particular case with the Foreign Minister of Israel. We will continue to press for the full flow of aid that needs to go in. The Honourable Member rightly asked me what I say to the people of Gaza. We understand the urgency. We understand the aid needs to be in there now. We will continue to press these points, both on the phone and when we go to the region this weekend, both of us.
Jack Rankin.
Number 12, please, sir.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And we have secured a deal that will protect the operation of the UK-US base on Diego Garcia well into next century. And the payments made under the deal will be split between the Foreign Office and the Ministry of Defence and published in the annual accounts of each department.
In what proportion?
Mr. Speaker, as I've said, those will be published in the annual accounts of each department.
Well, standing right. Shadow Minister Andrew Rosenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last week, Labour voted against our amendment to give the House of Commons a say on the government's reckless decision to surrender £35 billion of taxpayers' hard-earned money to Mauritius for the privilege of giving away our own sovereign territory. But we still have no certainty from the government about the fate of the vital Diego Garcia base after the 99-year period. So, what is stopping Mauritius from demanding billions more if the UK wishes to extend the use of Diego Garcia for another 40 years? But, Mr. Speaker, wouldn't it be more sensible to save the money, ditch the surrender deal and keep the Chagos Islands British?
Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, as he knows from the many debates, many questions that I've answered on this issue, and indeed the debate that we had in this place which secured the passage and third reading of the bill, the cost of the agreement in today's money is £101 million and the net present value over 99 years is £3.4 billion. However much he comes up with other fantasy figures, they are simply incorrect. And these are verified by the Government Actuary Department. And if you want to talk about spending and value, I will not apologise for spending on our national security and keeping this country and our allies safe. And for comparison, Mr. Speaker, he might like to reflect on the fact that the annual payment is 20% less than the cost of the festival of Brexit.
Right, let us now go to topicals. James Nish.
Question 1, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, Hurricane Melissa is expected to make landfall in Jamaica shortly, potentially the most severe storm ever to hit the country. Sadly, 7 people have already reportedly lost their lives across the region, and thousands are in shelters now as they wait the storm's arrivals. Many people will be thinking of family and friends in Jamaica and in the region. I spoke with the Jamaican Foreign Minister yesterday to offer the UK's full support and solidarity, and we are prepared to mobilise resources at their request. And the FCDO stands ready to help British nationals 24/7. We have set up the Crisis Centre in the Foreign Office, including with support from the MOD. And we are also positioning specialist rapid deployment teams to provide consular assistance to British nationals in the region. Any British nationals who are there should follow our travel advice and the advice of the Jamaican authorities. We're closely monitoring the hurricane's path. Melissa is forecast to impact Cuba next, and potentially the Turks and Caicos Islands and the Bahamas. Ministers have spoken with the governors of the overseas territories in the region, and we hope that these islands are spared significant damage. The UK government is also preparing to deliver humanitarian assistance to affected areas with a focus on meeting the immediate needs of those who are most vulnerable, and we send the people of Jamaica our support and solidarity today.
James Nish.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Foreign Secretary for that update on Jamaica and the diligence of the FCDO in preparing for events there. Tomorrow I'm hosting Hong Kong Watch in Parliament as it releases its latest report on the erosion of Hong Kong's autonomy. The report highlights how Beijing has increasingly sought to dismantle Hong Kong's autonomy while also exploiting the privileges of its special status. This is increasingly having an impact on business operations in Hong Kong and is something that is well understood by the government but has yet to be fully recognised, including in last week's FCDO 6-monthly report. Can the Minister confirm whether the UK will consider additional steps to push back against these violations of China's international treaty obligation?
Can I just help me to help everybody else try and get in. It is topical, so we've got to be short and punchy. Foreign Secretary.
We strongly condemn China's non-compliance with the joint declaration in the latest 6-monthly report which has been published, which details the continued deterioration of rights and freedoms in Hong Kong. We have continually pressed to China to uphold the rights of Hong Kongers. Compliance is one of the reasons we remain steadfastly committed to the BNO visa route.
Foreign Secretary Dame Priti Patel.
Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, traces its roots back to the barbaric terrorism of al-Qaeda, including terrible death and destruction and harm to our allies. Can the Foreign Secretary explain to the House why her government has deprescribed HTS, and does she believe that they're no longer a terrorist threat to the world?
Well, she will know that, as both of us will know from our former roles as Home Secretaries, that the prescription process is a very detailed one and a very considered one, drawing on a range of security expertise. And that process no longer assesses HTS to be an alias of Al-Qaeda after extensive consideration and a full assessment of the available information. And she will know that was the grounds on which it was prescribed in the first place. We will ultimately, however, judge them on their actions and not their words, but the new Syrian government has conveyed its strong commitment to working with the UK.
Speaker, does the Foreign Secretary therefore believe that this decision will lead to the destruction of all chemical weapons in Syria? And she said that they will be judged upon their actions. Will she look at putting conditions in place if they do not step up to their actions, in the same way in which America has with regards to the sanctions that were lifted on them?
Well, we have, my honourable friend, the Middle East Minister, has raised this issue directly with the Syrian government, and we continue to raise these security issues, not just with Syria, but to other parties in the region, because she will know the importance of regional governments working together on some of the security issues that she raises. This is both about the historic terrorism threat that we have faced from the region, but also about the responsibility on governments to maintain stability in Syria and the impact that this has across the region. We will continue to take those security issues immensely seriously.
Sally Jameson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I welcome the government's sanction of 2 Russian oil majors around a fortnight ago. But does the Minister agree that it's only by increasing the economic pressure on Putin that we will force him round that negotiating table and finally bring an end to Russia's illegal war in Ukraine?
Foreign Secretary.
I do agree with my honourable friend. We need to increase the economic pressure on Putin. We need to choke off the supply of Russian oil and gas into international markets. Our sanctions, our package of sanctions, including on the 2 biggest Russian oil producers, goes a substantial step forward. It is really welcome that other countries, including the US, are now doing the same. It is only through international action we will have the impact.
Democrat spokesperson.
Mr. Speaker, in the United States, President Trump continues to use his public power to advance his private financial interests. In the UK, as well as rooting out traitors like Nathan Gill who take funds from our enemies, we must prevent this corrosive cronyism from entering our own politics. I wrote yesterday to the new Ethics and Integrity Commission, calling on it to investigate whether DCMS officials lobbied for Trump's golf courses. I intend to bring a bill to this place which would create enhanced protections against UK ministers and officials lobbying for foreign powers. Will the Secretary of State commit to supporting the principle of this bill?
Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, without seeing what his proposals are, I'm not going to comment on that at this stage. But what I will say is that we do take all evidence of foreign interference in this country very, very seriously. And I work closely with ministers across government, including the Home Office and elsewhere, and my colleague, the Security Minister, to keep these issues under assessment on a regular basis.
John Slinger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I declare an interest as chair of the APPG for the Kurdistan region in Iraq and led a delegation there. In the 2005 federal Iraqi constitution, agreed in a popular vote, should underpin Kurdish rights, and we were told that Baghdad deliberately withholds salary payments to public employees there. The Foreign Secretary visited Erbil as Home Secretary and knows how important this part of Iraq is to our security. So does she agree that we need our Kurdish ally to be strong and respected in a federal Iraq, and that a better relationship there would enable vital reform for the benefit of that region and indeed our own country?
Minister.
The relationship between Baghdad, Erbil and indeed Sulaymaniyah is of vital importance. I continue to discuss these issues with the Iraqi Foreign Minister and indeed Iraqi Kurdish politicians as well. We'll continue to do so, and I look forward to visiting the region shortly.
Thank you. The UN Secretary General has warned that it's now inevitable that we will fail to keep global warming under 1.5 degrees, with a threat of devastating consequences like the loss of the Amazon rainforest and its role in climate regulation. While the Conservatives and Reform continue to sabotage climate action, it's good to know that the Prime Minister will be going to COP30. But will the Foreign Secretary commit to no further cuts to our international aid budget so that we can contribute to the Tropical Forest Funds Forever Fund?
Well, Mr. Speaker, she's a passionate advocate on these issues, I know, and we debated these issues just the other day in Westminster Hall. The UK remains committed to providing international climate finance now and in the future, and to playing our part alongside other developed countries and climate finance providers, and we're committed to delivering £11.6 billion in international climate finance by the end of 25-26.
Chris Vance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Friday was World Polio Day. My constituent in Harlow, former Paralympian Anne Strike, continues to campaign for the eradication of polio. What reassurances can the Minister give me that the UK will continue to be a leading player in that aim?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know my honourable friend is a long-standing advocate of polio eradication. The UK is a long-standing supporter of this programme, and we have confirmed a £1.25 billion pledge to Gavi for 2026-30. Other spending, including on the Global Polio Eradication Initiative, is being reviewed as part of the spending review and the order allocation process, which will be decided in due course.
Richard Tice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As we speak, the Chagossians are in the High Court to try and stop this terrible Chagos surrender deal. Given this government's passion for international human rights, and we all agree how badly they have been treated, will the government finally agree to grant the Chagossians a referendum on this dreadful deal?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not going to comment on legal proceedings, but the honourable gentleman knows full well that this had to be a treaty negotiated between the UK and Mauritius. That's the basis on which it's done. But we absolutely recognise the historic wrongs to the Chagossian people. I've engaged with Chagossian communities on a number of occasions and will continue to do so through our new contact group.
Luke Charters.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I welcome the new package of sanctions on Russian financial institutions, and so does the Minister agree with me that we should stand ready to expand that package of sanctions to stop Russian financial institutions from financing their illegal war in Ukraine?
Minister.
Well, he will know that we don't comment on future sanctions designations, but he will know that we are absolutely committed, as the Foreign Secretary said, to choking off Russia's war machine and bringing Putin to the table. And that's why our sanctions, alongside others, have denied Russia access to at least $450 billion since February 2022, and that would have funded 2 more years of this illegal and barbarous war. So we won't hesitate to act where we can, and we will work with others in that endeavour.
Vicky Slade.
I joined Cathod and my constituents Carl, Harry and Joe on a deadlift challenge. We, and yes, Mr. Speaker, that includes me, collectively lifted over 100 tonnes, the equivalent of 5 A-planes to Gaza. But Cathod also work in the West Bank, where Palestinians are being treated as second-class citizens living under military, not civil law. So what diplomatic actions is the department taking to ensure violence against them ends and improve their rights of the Palestinians while a two-state solution is negotiated?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the initiative that the honourable member took with CAFOD rightly highlights the importance of rubble movement in Gaza. It is an enormous logistical challenge. That was one of the reasons why I convened the Gaza Reconstruction Conference in Wilton Park, and she rightly raises the very important questions of rights in the West Bank. We have contributed and will continue to contribute to efforts locally to ensure that those residents in the West Bank can exercise their rights, and we will continue to raise the wider issues around annexation in the way.
Diane Abbott.
The Foreign Secretary will be aware that Hurricane Melissa is of huge concern internationally to those who have friends and family on holiday in Jamaica and to those of us of Jamaican heritage here in Britain. Can she give an assurance in what will be the horrific aftermath of Melissa that we will give every possible help and support to the people of Jamaica?
Zone State.
I agree with my right honourable friend and the Mother of the House on this. There are 50,000 dual nationals who live in Jamaica, up to 8,000 British citizens who may be travelling there or on holiday there. And we have very strong links between our communities, between the people of Jamaica and the people of Britain. That is why I spoke to the Jamaican Foreign Minister yesterday to offer our solidarity and support. I can tell her that we have not just rapid deployment of consular staff, we also have humanitarian support being pre-positioned in, and we have discussed this in the crisis centre this morning as to what we might be able to deploy on request from the Jamaican government, but we do stand ready to help and respond.
Gregory Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can the Foreign Secretary help with the context of the Middle East conflict, in that I've been endeavouring to try and establish an independent, verifiable number of rocket attacks that were carried out on the 12 months before October 7th, and how many rocket attacks into Israel in the 12 months after October 7th, to give some context to what has happened since. Is she able to assist?
Yeah. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it's an important question. We have condemned rocket attacks into Israel throughout, both before and after October the 7th. The nature of the rockets from Hamas and PIJ are harder to have a clear and indisputable number, but let me try and assist the honourable member on some of the other rockets. I believe that the Iranian attacks from since October the 7th included 600 rockets, killing 29 Israelis. Houthi attacks, which have targeted Israeli civilians, include 100 ballistic missiles and drones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I recently met the family of Devinder Singh Tandy, who died in suspicious circumstances in India. And this has obviously been a distressing time for my constituents. And unfortunately, they have struggled to get timely advice and support from the Foreign Office, although I thank the Minister for her recent letter. But will she agree to meet with me to discuss their case and how the Department can develop a victims' code to better support families like Mr. Tandy's?
Minister.
I thank my honourable friend for her letter and also for her contribution today, and I'm very happy to meet with her.
Seamus Logan.
Mr. Speaker, last week the Chancellor accepted that Brexit has caused huge damage to the economy. This week, sources suggest the Prime Minister is being advised to go further in his realignment with the European Union, as the OBR are reportedly forecasting a new black hole of around 20 billion. Again, the impact of Brexit on growth. And so I ask, Mr. Speaker, is the Foreign Secretary ready to admit that no matter how you try to spin it, Brexit has been an all-out disaster for Scotland and indeed for these islands?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we've made no hesitation in exposing the impacts of the botched Brexit deal that the previous government did, and that's exactly why we have reset our relationships with the EU, why we've achieved important agreements at that May summit that we had, and why my colleague, the Minister of the Cabinet Office, myself and others are working to deliver on that deal to ensure benefits for our businesses and consumers and people across this country.
The Select Committee, Sarah Champion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, members might not be aware, but FCDO have given notice to the Insolvency Service that 1,885 jobs are at risk due to the 25% reduction in workforce that follows along the ODA cuts. This is a massive drop in staff numbers and is bound to have a real impact, particularly on smaller departments like conflict prevention. So will the Foreign Minister please comment, being new in post, how this will impact on her ability to shape the department as she wants, and also the forward plan for the department is still not finalised, so how can she operate without the staff to do so?
Well, I thank my honourable friend, the Select Committee Chair, for her question, and she will know that the government has taken the difficult decision to reduce the aid budget in order to fund the defence resources that we need at a time when there are significant security pressures. She will also know that we are working to ensure that we can find different ways, including working with private finance and new investment ways, in order to be able to maintain not just the multilateral investment that's so important, but also crucial aid programmes in areas such as Sudan and Gaza. I am happy to meet with my honourable friend to discuss these details further, and of course
I refer to my...
Just say, I need the Foreign Secretary to tell me. These members have been desperate to get in, and the only way I can get them is by speeding up, because obviously we've got to get on with the opposition day at some point. Rachel Gilmore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I refer you to my recent register of interest. When I was in Ukraine last month, I met with senior Ukrainian figures,
all of whom told me the same thing. They need more support from Europe to win this war. With that in mind, will the Foreign Secretary finally commit to seizing the 25 billion worth of frozen Russian assets held in the UK and deploy them to Ukraine in their hour of need?
Minister.
Well, I absolutely agree. We need to get Ukraine every support that they need, and our support is ironclad. That's why we hosted the Coalition of the Willing just on Friday. You'll have heard the Foreign Secretary say that we're working closely with partners to ensure that Russia pays for the damage that it's caused, and we'll find the lawful and most effective ways to do that.
Dame Meghelly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Karim Anara is an internationally recognised human rights activist who's been subject to a travel ban by Egypt and has been stuck there since 2020. What is the Foreign Office doing, or can it do, to ensure that he is able to come to the UK to join his wife in my constituency?
Mr. Speaker, I'm familiar with the case. I've met the man in question and indeed her constituent. I'm very happy to meet with her to discuss it further. I'm travelling to Egypt this weekend and will continue to be in these sorts of discussions.
Wendy Chamberlain.
Spending in Afghanistan inevitably impact women and children disproportionately. They are more likely to be employed by NGOs forced to make cuts and also more likely to need assistance. Does the Minister agree we need to ring-fence and protect funding to Afghanistan?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have to be absolutely clear about who is driving the oppression of Afghan women and girls. The Taliban have put further restrictions onto women and girls. They have taken further steps, including restricting the internet, which undermines the viability of Afghanistan's economy at a fundamental level. But I can assure the House that we continue to allocate significant funding, £151 million this year. That is a small decrease from last year, but I want to assure the member who I know, the honourable member, who I know remains very committed to these issues, that we remain very much focused on them, and it is the Taliban who need to bear the significant responsibility.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The British public are under no illusion of how much resources are going to take to have the humanitarian aid in Gaza and the rebuild of Gaza, and they want to play their part. Has the government considered using aid match so that we match the public contribution, £1 versus £1 of government money, to increase the proportion of British aid and rebuilding that can happen in Gaza?
Well, I can tell my friend we are looking at different ways to ensure that we can get sufficient resources into Gaza. This will require not just the immediate humanitarian assistance, but also long-term reconstruction aid, and we're continuing to work with our allies and here in the UK on doing so.
Leila Moran.
Last week I met Nada, an Oxford plastic surgeon, who told me of the horrific stories of children that she's been treating in Gaza. I believe the Secretary of State's met her too. The thing that's most concerning is if these wounds don't have care, they will lead to life-changing disabilities. The medics are calling for a humanitarian corridor between Gaza and the West Bank so that those Palestinian children can stay in Palestine. What discussions has she had on this matter?
I have met the doctor that the honourable member refers to. Her work is inspiring, as well as just the most terrible stories of suffering. We do agree that we need to be able to get the humanitarian corridors in place, that we need to be able to treat children, especially in the region, but also she will know we are medevacing children to the UK for treatment as well.
Donna Baxter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last month, ahead of the UN General Assembly, I had the honour of welcoming Vlad, Valeria and Roman, 3 young children who were injured and abducted by Russia during Putin's illegal invasion into Ukraine. I want to thank you, Mr. Speaker, and my honourable friend the Minister for taking time out of your busy days to meet with those children, to hear firsthand the horrors they have been through, but also their inspiring stories. Can the Secretary of State update the House on what discussions were held at the UN General Assembly on the unlawful deportation of Ukrainian children, and what further support is being provided to Ukraine to aid their recovery?
Minister.
Well, it genuinely was an honour to meet the 3 young people she mentioned, Mr. Speaker, and as she says, their stories are not only shocking, but they're also inspiring in their courage. I can absolutely assure her that we continue to use every forum, including the United Nations, and also in all of our discussions with partners and allies, and particularly commend the First Lady's initiatives on this issue, and we absolutely want to see those young people returned. It's one of the most heinous aspects of Russia's illegal and barbarous war in Ukraine.
Rigon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The British Council is in dire financial straits. If they disappear, so will the invaluable soft power that they wield. Will the Foreign Secretary commit to meeting with the Chief Executive of the British Council to discuss this as soon as possible?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the Honourable Lady for a question. The British Council plays a crucial role in supporting UK interests around the world, including helping people to learn English, promote the arts and culture. The Foreign Office is providing £160 million in grant aid to the Council this year, which underlines our support. I've already met with the Vice Chair and the Deputy Chief Executive, and I'll be meeting the Chief Executive and the Chair in due course.
Dr. Peter Prinsley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Yaxley Lennon, aka T. Robinson, has been feted in Israel at the invitation of a government minister, whilst the member for Bury St Edmunds and Stowmarket, aka Prinsley, has been banned. As a British Jew, a member of the Board of Deputies and a vocal supporter of the Israeli people in Parliament, what does the Secretary of State think can be usefully done to rectify this?
Minister.
My honourable friend is an incredibly thoughtful, long-standing commentator on these issues. Both him and his family have made a great commitment, a great contribution to UK-Israeli relations. It was an act of great foolishness to prevent him entering into Israel and the occupied Palestinian territory. We called on the Israeli government at the time, as we did in the previous such instances. We cannot prevent the Israeli government from making decisions which are not in their interest, but this was clearly one of them.
Sir Julian Lewis.
The government's position seems to be that communist China can pose and does pose a wide range of serious threats to the United Kingdom, but isn't a threat itself. How can that possibly make sense?
Well, I think he will have heard me set out very clearly the threats that China poses to our national security, including transnational repression, including support for Russia, including espionage as well. And he will know those range of threats, which is why I think it is deeply frustrating that the prosecution has not taken place. He will also, of course, know that China is a trading partner and we continue to have strong economic relations as well. It is possible for both of those things to be true.
Louis Say.
Speaker, despite a ceasefire being in place for almost a year, Israeli forces struck UN peacekeepers in southern Lebanon just this weekend. What work is the government doing with the Lebanese government and in particular the Lebanese armed forces to shore up our crucial ally in the region?
Minister.
Lebanon is a crucial ally, Mr. Speaker. I will be travelling there shortly and I intend to go to the area affected. It is absolutely vital that Lebanon's borders, both in the east and the south, are secure. That is vital for their security as well as ours.
Final question, Mark Pritchard.
Mr. Speaker, British national Jimmy Lai is currently in a prison in solitary confinement in Hong Kong. He's been there for 5 years. He's 78 years of age. He's in ill health. And his trial will come to an end very, very soon. Ahead of the Apex summit, what representations has the Foreign Secretary made to the White House to ensure that when President Trump meets President Xi, that the case of Jimmy Lai will be raised, as it has been in the last 36 hours, by a cross-party group of 38 US senators?
Foreign Secretary.
I can tell him we continue to be deeply distressed by this case, continue to make representations and also to discuss this case with the US as well and continue to stay in contact with Jimmy Lai's family.
Point of order, Don Butler.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to apologise for not taking the direction of the chair yesterday.
Can I first of all say I thank the honourable member for a point of order and for an apology. I'd also add that should any member need any advice on the rules and convention of the House, the clerks are always available to assist. Point of order, was it Stephen Flynn?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Not to apologise on this occasion yet.
There is still time.
So we'll give it a minute. Give it a minute. At business questions last week, Mr. Speaker, I put to the leader of the House that he affords time for my early motion in respect of Prince Andrew to be heard. He intimated to me that options are always available to members to pursue. That's why, in due course, I wrote to the Prime Minister seeking clarity that we would get that opportunity. Since then, there's been further revelations with regards to Prince Andrew hosting not just Harvey Weinstein, but indeed the notorious paedophile Jeffrey Epstein at the Royal Lodge in Windsor. There's been suggestions that this House and this Parliament can take action in relation to his succession in line of the throne, and indeed that we may well end up compensating Prince Andrew too should he move out of the Royal Lodge. Can I get guidance from you as to how I solicit an early response from the Prime Minister to my correspondence?
We nearly did have an apology. Look, can I first of all say thank you to the honourable member for giving notice of his points of order. As the honourable member be aware, and I know he's aware, I made a statement on Thursday last week at the start of business, providing some clarification on ways in which this House can properly consider the matter. In raising this point of order, the honourable member has placed on record his letter to the Prime Minister and the early day motion tabled in his name. The scheduling of time for debate is not a matter for the Chair. I know the honourable member will continue to seek ways to pursue this issue, and he's already reminded the Treasury bench of what he wishes. I will now leave it there. Let the front bench change over. We now come to the Opposition Day motion on stamp duty land tax. I inform the House that I have not selected the amendment. I now call